Good morrow, he's, she's, and them. Old buddy Ben with that #show.com, as always brought to you by the fine folks over at Neft Vodka, reminding you to please drink responsibly, as well as everybody who's over at Toink.com, our other great sponsors. So exciting! Coming at you today, I got to sit down with VFX Supervisor Lotta Forssman, who works for Molecule VFX, the team behind Apple TV's Dickinson. What's that, you say? Dickinson is a show about Emily Dickinson in the 1800s. Why would that need visual effects? I'll tell you why. There are so many digital effects shots that go into recreating 1800s New England, and Lotta Forssman is at the forefront of it all. Check out this sit-down that I did with her. Lotta Forssman, thank you so much for being with me today and talking about Dickinson on Apple TV. Really excited to talk to you about the visual effects of this show because I've watched it. I didn't realize it was as visual effects heavy as it actually is. I mean, there's obviously some stuff that's like, clearly you can't do that in real life, but we're going to talk a little bit about what you do. Before we get into that, I want to ask you where you're from. You're obviously not starting out at this. You've been doing this, visual effects for over a decade, or at least a decade, I think. And tell me a little bit about where you're from, how you got into this, and kind of a little brief bit about your journey to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Sweden, grew up, around in Europe. We moved around a little bit. I ended up, my dad lived in Pittsburgh, Atlanta, which made me move over and go to college in the States, where I studied film and video production and where I got my intro to the film world. I ended up not getting into visual effects or even knowing that I was going into visual effects after college. I went through an internship in Sweden where I worked at a live studio game show and had a producer there that kind of took me under her wing a little bit and encouraged me to sit with editors and get into post-production. At that point, I thought I was going to go into, more like the art director, production designer world. Like I wanted to be a part of designing, what's going to be on screen. Little did I know that I ended up actually doing just that, just a little bit of a different route, So after that first internship, it just kind of snowballed, and I worked as a motion graphics artist, assistant editor, went deeper and deeper into visual effects. I ended up getting a job over 10 years ago at the Molecule as a visual effects artist. And I am still there today, but had a quite interesting transition going from visual effects artist to motion graphics, back and forth between that, into visual effects editing, which led to coordinating, which led to assistant producing, and then eventually going out on set. So it's been quite a ride, and it's been quite a fast journey, but I've really, I am now doing what I thought I was going to do, build worlds, work with the production designers, and just a little bit different than I imagined.
That's an incredible journey, just like stepping up and continuing to go. And you obviously have to be very skilled and talented at what you do in order to make that happen. So congratulations on that. That's amazing. And can I also just say, as a side note, I'm super stoked to be talking to you today because I've done several interviews with different visual effects artists and supervisors and from different companies, and they've all been dudes. And so you're the first female visual effects supervisor and artist that I've talked to yet, and I'm always excited to see women coming into a field that has been traditionally dominated by men in a lot of ways, and being successful. So that's really awesome, and I'm really, really happy to see that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited too, and I'm excited that that's a changing thing in our industry, and I see more and more women and people of color, and it needs to be diverse. It's a very creative role to have, and there has to be a lot of different voices represented in that creative role. So I'm excited for the change and seeing more and more women in this role.
Your work has to do with seamlessly blending the digital into the practical and expanding the world, the 19th century world of Emily Dickinson. Can you talk to me about what it is that you do, how you create what you create, and make the look of Dickinson the way that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the two parts of, working on the show. One being the world and the buildings and, creating, it's not even much about creating, but finishing what the production designer and the set decorators and props, what everybody has contributed to. I'm just, extending it or finishing it off and trying to blend my work seamlessly into what they have. And that's one of my favorite parts about this show. It's that collaborative set that we have and the collaborative crew. We shoot at Bethpage in Long Island, which, they have a restoration village that gives us a great canvas. There's a lot of different buildings that are already period appropriate. But then Dickinson itself has a very specific, house that we needed to shoot by. And that house does exist, but it's up in Boston and it's a museum and you cannot send the whole crew there for, months to shoot. So that was one of the first discussions that I got into on the show was, okay, how are we going to do her house? Like, how are we going to rebuild it? And, we worked together with the production designer. Season 1, it was, Lauren Weeks. We kind of, did a drawing of like, what can you do and where do we take over, and how do we blend that seam a little bit seamlessly, so it's not just a straight line, like you give me something and I expand on that. So it was a very much collaborative piece of like deciding on what was going to be practical and what wasn't. And then once we had decided what wasn't going to be practical, we of course went up to Amherst and we shot plates and we shot references and it really took in the actual architecture and brought it back home into, our digital world and blended the two. And season 2 gave us the same amount of challenge, having to create Austin's house to her brother. And we went about it the same way because it was very successful from season 1. And Neil Patel, the production designer, designed like a beautiful first floor. And I, was lucky enough to have that as a starting point to extend on.
How many people do you have working on this on the digital side, strictly?
Oh, so, I mean, Molecule is about, I think we're around 75 people right now in total, that work on many, many different shows, like 45 staff and a bunch of freelancers, which grow when we need to. And, for Dickinson, we had a core team of maybe, I would say around 15 people, but then depending on what the episode was, we needed more people working on, say, smoke and the ghost horses. So then our CG team grew, and then we had our house building team, and some episodes were a lot bigger there. So it's a little bit fluctuating, but we did around I think 415 shots for season 2 in Dickinson, which. And a lot of them were, fun and hopefully invisible. And then you have some that you, of course, know that there's no, ghost horse that runs around in Long Island.
Well, since you've brought it up, talk to me about the development of the death carriage and the ghost horses and that sort of thing.
The good thing about Dickinson is that they brought us on so early in the process. Like, they had us on prepping months in advance before season 1 started, and we had all scripts to prep. So it was really nice to know what the challenges was going to be and how often these ghost horses were going to come back and what we need to, we needed to see them in daytime and nighttime. So we knew what it was going to end up being. The look of it actually stemmed from, I think the production designer gave me a picture of, it was almost like a face in smoke, like cigarette smoke. And it was kind of like that feel, and from that one little picture, we started, developing this look of wispy smoke ghost horses. It matches in pretty well, I think, even though it's so surreal and so weird. It matches in within this ethereal, wispy smokiness that kind of is a theme that comes back throughout the whole season in different ways.
Tell me about the giant hedge maze.
Oh wow, that one was a big task too. We again filmed that in at the Restoration Village, and they were nice enough to let us actually plant a little bit of a hedge maze. And initially we were going to focus on the big wide overhead shot, which we knew wanted to be this endless, and and then also open it up to see wider scopes between when you see an opening in within the hedge maze. But there's a few things that ended up happening. The hedge maze needed to be a little bit taller than it practically was. So that ended up being one of the bigger episodes last season, working on extending not just, the scope further away, but also growing the hedges to be tall, to be taller, because actors were pretty tall within there. And we wanted to really sell the sense that they were getting lost in this big hedge maze. So it was important that they couldn't peek over to see where the exit was. So it became a big feat for our, CG team, matte painting team, and comp team of creating hedge mazes up and in every direction, as well as blending with the real hedge mazes, because I wanted to make sure that we kept as much real as possible, so that again, it's like that fine blending the line of where is real, where is digital, what's practical, and hopefully you can't tell all the time. I'm lucky that I can collaborate with every single department. Like, I don't think there's any department I don't collaborate with at some point, in the filmmaking process or when we shoot. And what's nice about trying to blend that line, I try to do practical as much as I can. I try to shoot elements. I try to shoot textures and references. And, I definitely love working with my special effects team and the crew there, and try to get as much as I can from them, because the more I can film and shoot and then add to and enhance, and also, like I said, blend that line so it's not straight, the more selling I think it is.
Well, Lotta, I think we're close to being out of time here, but wow. I know it goes so fast, doesn't it? Just tremendous work. Thank you so much for all the work that you do, and congratulations on having such a great job that you're so good at. We should all be blessed to have that in our lives, a great job that we're extremely skilled at.
I think I'm really lucky, really just loving my job, and that's what makes, and loving the team that I work with. And Dickinson is really, such a good project to work for or work on, because Elena Schmidt, the creator, she just created this beautiful canvas for everybody to start collaborating on and giving their little pieces to put together the puzzle. So I'm really just lucky to be doing something I'm passionate about and that I love, and collaborate with people that are good at what they do too. So I'm very happy about it. And season 3 that I'm prepping now is going to be so much fun. So can't wait till that comes out too.
Finally, besides Dickinson season 3, do you have anything else in the works right now that you're working on that you can tell us about?
Sure. I'm just finishing up on set on a Hulu show called Only Murders in the Building. Good team and really, really good content. So lucky to have 2 good shows to sink my teeth into right now.
Lotta, thank you so much for talking to me today. Lotta was such a delight to talk to, had such a good time, and let me tell you what, before this interview, I'd only seen 1, maybe 2 episodes of Dickinson. Now knowing all this work that went into it, not knowing what was tricking my eye, I'm gonna go back and binge the whole thing. You can check out Dickinson on Apple TV. Remember folks, I'm Old Buddy Ben. This is that#show.com, and the reason I'm drinking out of this red cup is because whenever Ben Kliewer shows up, it's always a party.